I know it's a little weird, ladies and gentlemen. There's 3 people here, not 2. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, aliens of all ages, good evening, Mr. BX Sports Jedi.
Good evening. Hello, everyone.
And hello back. We are graciously guested by my wonderful and future wife, Cardala Mohammed. Hello, Mr.
Hello, everybody. Nice to see you guys.
AKA future co-host of the Coquito Cabaret and the Noir Project. We'll get to that in the future. Tonight, today, or this evening, we are going to do a Echo series review. We just came out, and we're going to talk about it episode by episode, delve into the historical accuracy of the nation and everything else, and give our thoughts on what it will entail in the future and the series to come. Now, Mr. BX Sports Jedi Network, what is your recollection of Maya, aka Echo, before we get to the series?
Well, this is a person that we saw her in the Hawkeye series,
Yes.
and of course, the first Native American disabled because she is mute, deaf mute as well, and seeing not just her senses because she's not the first character we saw. Daredevil, of course, he's blind, but now to see now the non-speaking ability, with the sign language and just opening up the verse because it makes you want to ask again, like we like to do the What If series. What if there is a superhero with a disability in challenge? And now we're going to see Echo, and I love her backstory. Now we're going to see in this series what's her origin, what's she all about? How did she become this badass assassin that we saw in the on the series with Hawkeye? So I'm really, 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 really want to see more of her backstory and what was her connection with Fisk, aka the Kingpin.
Now, before we continue, what is your connection to Maya Echo before we even delve into the series?
Well, I will say I didn't know about her character before watching all of the new series like Hawkeye and Echo. But I love her character, honestly. Like, I think she's awesome, and I really like that they chose to go with like the spiritual and cultural connection to her powers, and I like that they really dove in on her backstory in the series. So I'm excited to talk about her. Yeah.
As well. Now, before we delve into this is going to be a recap and then an analysis of a recap, episode per episode, and we're going to just delve into things. Now, this is a synopsis, half as we did with the other episodes, and check out our other episodes on Rika Reactions and BX Sports Jedi Network, his channel as well. He has wonderful things, and on Instagram and audio. If you want to hear him, see him, or touch him, well, touching costs a little extra, but everything else you get for free. Now, what we're going to do here is have a little recap. Thank you, Slew, everyone. In the beginning, we see basically beings underground emerging from the water. As they get to the water, you see a spiral reminiscence of Kaori from What If Episode 6. Yes. And they are drinking from the water. They see their hands have the same spiral, but in counterclockwise position. We find out that the Choctaw Nation uses that counterclockwise symbolism to represent life and everything else. And all of a sudden, an earthquake happens. The main leader of those beings is holding up the ceiling while everybody seemingly is jumping into that hole, one after the other, after the other. And at the end, she holds it hard enough, disappears. Light flashes. We see that they are somewhere in an earth. We find out it's Earth, but somewhere in a Earth. They, at the same time, were covered in brown type of skin markings as of the Native Americans on their skin. The main person as well had ones on her chin. As they're looking up at the sun, their skin peels or flakes like clay and everything else. We find out that the first woman to step up, and everyone's asking, what should we do? They move forward, and that person's name is Chafa. Now, before we continue, again, this is all speculation, but this is a good point about this. Now, it's basically been confirmed that these beings were in a pocket dimension at the same exact time this was happening. My wonderful co-host said that they're under Earth, but a theory is up for you, Mr. Kevin. Yeah. At the same time this is happening, we know that this is all connected to the multiversal war. We know everything in time, from beginning of time to the end of time, has been connected because of Kang. Now, do you think, as a theory, the reason that the pocket dimension got destroyed was because of the multiversal war, and they had to just get out? Like, okay, our house is destroyed, We're out of here. Your thoughts?
It could be with that, especially the way we saw with Loki grabbing onto all the different theories back to the Loki series of all the multiverse stringing together, trying to save
Yes.
them. That could be a dimension where it might have been being almost out of existence, and they jump, and when they jump in, they're jumping in, and because remember, as we're gonna see in the story in this whole entire series, there's a phrase or a saying, and I don't want to go ahead and spoil it, that they're going, and I'm gonna touch back to it, that they tell Echo later on that's gonna go back to this particular point that we're talking about. So I'm not gonna spoil it. Just remember that. Just give that mark there.
Hmm.
You see that, and I thought about that. So yeah, that looks like it's tying into Loki, and which you want consistency in the Marvel universe where things
Yes.
make sense, and not why does this tie in with that? And I appreciated that. Also, when we saw the What If series, the Blue Water as the Tesseract was split, as we saw
Mhm.
in the Kahani series, in the What If series there, and I go, is that Tesseract or I say, is that Tesseract power? Is that story coming to life here in this Echo series, or is this Inhuman, or is this
Yeah.
mutant, or there was a lot of questions in that particular moment, and I stopped and I go, all right, let's see where this leads us to, and I thought of all of that thing there, and I like the fact when you're talking about when they're coming out of the mud, goes back to creation. We were created out of dust, out of mud. When the mud starts drying off and you peel up and they're breaking into and coming into life, like the creator giving life, and they were coming into this world. So I liked all that aspect. It touched all the different aspects, and I'm like, okay, it's intriguing. Let's go. The first opening scene was very, 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 very inspirational.
Of course. Your
Yeah.
thoughts?
Yeah, I will say we had a lot of conversations while we were watching the show where he was kind of questioning it from the perspective of the MCU, and I was looking at it from the perspective of how is it tying back to real Choctaw myth.
Yeah.
And I really do appreciate, like, I got emotional before we even started this, and like during every episode, like how much dedication they put into like the authenticity of the Choctaw community. Like it was real businesses, it was a lot of real places and real traditions, and I just think that's so beautiful, and I've always wanted that to be more represented.
Yes. And to be perfectly honest, and this is specified by them themselves, this was the Marvel's version of the Choctaw origin of creation. This is not the
Correct.
creation of the Choctaw people. This is just the Marvel's version.
Yeah.
But put that out clear as day. People are like, no, they said it themselves. We continue on and skip about, we don't know how, we don't know exactly when Chafa emerged from the pocket dimension. So we just say beginning of time. Let's say that. We
Right.
fast forward to 2007, where Maya as a kid, as a cousin, and her cousin Bonnie are doing nice little, and they're describing the story of how Chafa was born and everything else through shadow puppets, and how people, and that's how the Choctaw people and Native Americans used to use by singing and dance and by puppetry or shadow puppetry.
Yeah.
And Maya tells Bonnie, "You're my sister." Bonnie's like, "We're cousins. I don't care. You're my sister." It starts to rain. We find out that her mother, which is I forgot her mother's name, is also deaf. And it starts to rain. She says, "I want some ice cream." Oh, there's no ice cream. Hey, I'll go. Come on, Maya. Let's go get some ice cream. While this is happening, the grandmother and the grandfather are having a nice little talk with them and everything else, talking about biscuits. We'll shout out to the new Avenger biscuits. Later on, we'll talk about him. Then we, not knowing, after the grandma and grandpa leave, we see that Chula looks out the window and sees a sapsucker. We don't know what that is until later on. And thank you for that. And the mother's name is Taola. Thank you for that, Taola. And we didn't know what that means. And as Maya's looking at her mom, mom's looking at her, boom, T-boned. We find the origin of how Maya lost her leg, because there's a sharp shrapnel literally in between her little leg. It's gone. And then her mom, when she looks at her mom, maybe they did this canonically, but they did this kind of a representing Echo's comic book origin. She had kind of like a face print or a handprint on her face on that side. You couldn't see that much, but she was gone. And the only thing you can hear is Echo's heartbeat.
Yeah.
And her looking at her mother.
See it from her perspective. Yeah.
We go a little bit more to the hospital, where we find out that the father and Uncle Henry are in the business of crime. They find out that someone cut the brakes, but they were taken care of. The mother says, well, great. More death with more death and everything else.
Yeah.
Chula tells him, get the hell out of here. Don't ever come back. You killed my mother. You killed my daughter. So I will never forgive you. And the father and Maya take their stuff and they leave. Now, we go a little bit more to do that to when we get to Hawkeye, when Maya is in the karate studio and everything else. They did cut out the part where Maya met Kaz, and that was a different thing. And thank you, Amy. You should watch. It's really good. We're recapping it, so you're about the same thing. Now, we also see that I think this is Uncle Henry and the brother exchanging money in the corner. Then you see Uncle Fisk. He wants us to have some fun and everything else. We cut a little bit more. We basically get a recap of the Hawkeye series of everything that's happening. We get everything else, and then we get to a certain point. But before we get there, we also find out by the recaps of what we were watching, there is a basic deleted episode. They at the last minute, it was supposed to be 6 episodes, but at the last minute they cut it and then basically used and reused footage from Hawkeye and put it in the first episode as a excuse. Now, what is your thoughts on that before we continue, Kevin?
Yeah, you're finding out how the dad eventually got connected with Fisk. You know, because we're already seeing Hawkeye, so we already know what's going to happen in the future. To see what's going on and how that was connected there. Also, the accident of Toala, to find out the brakes were cut. Why were the brakes cut? Was it meant for the Lopez brothers? Who was behind it? They didn't really dive into it too much, or for me, it just went over my head. Why was those brakes cut? I wanted to know that. That's what I left with that. But is there a money issue? What was going on? And of course, I love how you brought back Biscuit. You know, they didn't show who this Biscuit guy was, or person, or if it was a dog or what. I'm like, yeah, the name kind of seemed intriguing. I kind of want to see who it is, so we'll find him out later. They set that up nicely there. If you look at it, when I wanted to see, like you said, that episode that was cut, the New York, the money exchange. What was the reason why Fisk got anger and bothered with Lopez, with the main father? Why?
Yep.
What was the reason? And I get they started to explain there. I guess when you work in that shady business, things are about to catch up to you, whatever the case is, and that's where we stand there with Echo at this point of your story that we're talking here right now.
Exactly, and it's weird. Your thoughts?
Yeah. No, you're absolutely right. They never did touch on like who cut the brakes. Like, was it somebody that was paid by Fisk to do it? Was it a personal vendetta? Like, you're right. They never did touch on that.
Never.
Lost my train of thought for the other thing.
I didn't want to spoil anything about it.
Yeah.
I'll talk to that again. I hate to leaving things incomplete, ladies and gentlemen, but I just don't want to spoil the story that we want to tell you of the whole series.
Yeah.
But I wanted to touch that about the breaks. I had a theory at that moment while this thing was unfolding, but then it turned out it not. So I'll get back to that too. So just mentally remind me that, so I don't leave people in a cliffhanger.
Of course, mental breaks. Now we continue on that after the father died by Ronin's hands, Fisk, which I didn't know this, one of many ASL translators in the background, not just the same one. It was actually different people. I didn't know that. We didn't know that. Then he tells her, look, we just want to help you. We want to take this anger and train you and use it. So she goes on her first job, which is basically rival gangs are talking crap. So they want to, like, Fisk wants to take them out. Okay, sure. So on her first job, she goes to 2 guys that didn't even know that she was mute. Didn't even know that. Let's go in there, which I did love in the beginning of the sequence. It's very mob mentality. He knocks on the door. They open up the slot. Fisk thanks you for your loyalty. Wonder why he said that. Oh, yeah. grab this freaking Departed style.
Yeah, that shocked me. Yeah.
Departed style. Like, this is not Disney anymore. Let's go.
Right.
As we continue on, very good fight sequence, very Daredevil fight sequence, very hallway, in and out, and everything else.
Love
Maya is shocked because it's like, what the hell am I even doing here? I'm supposed to fight, not kill people. At the moment where it did a nice little one take or one shot, the guy got to her, and then she did a nice little guillotine anaconda, like just a nice little vice. And the director clearly said this was the origin of the villain Echo right here. Or the villain basically Maya, because she didn't have a nickname until then. So when she snapped that neck and everything went slow, you saw that something snapped in her at the same time, and it was go time.
Right.
From there, she used a variety of attacks. And before I even continue, before they went to the meeting and said the whole loyalty thing, security guard patted down the two guys.
Love that part.
Security guard patted down the girl. Oh, you gotta turn around, and then he started being a little handsy. Got a little kicked in the nuts. Then during the fight scene, she signs again. Oh, you again. And then beats his ass to the bitch of his life. As we're fighting, someone unexpected comes. It's Daredevil, not She-Hulk booty call Daredevil. No, this is Netflix Daredevil. I'm always gonna call him booty call Daredevil. Okay, I always say that. Thank you. Shout out to Agent Super Aggro. Welcome. And they have a nice fight. And this is a wonderful contrast of styles. You have a blind person versus a deaf person. And they explain Daredevil has a sense that he can see forms and shapes by the heartbeat and movement and the environment. And this is not comic book Echo, where comic book Echo is basically a female Taskmaster, where Taskmaster can copy other people's abilities and fighting styles and then use it for her own. No, they took that away. She is a prodigy. They kind of hinted that in the beginning of the first episode, that she's a prodigy of anything, electronics, linguistics, everything. They have a wonderful fight. And then we kind of figure that Daredevil was casing this gang member to try to connect him to Fisk, because this is the same time Daredevil is trying to connect Fisk in the series. So that's a nice little Easter egg that we never knew. And the fight was glorious, in my opinion. Nice little contrast of styles, nice little Japanese stance styles that Daredevil would do a couple times. We also found out that she got hit in the kidney a couple times. Once by the Thug and once by Daredevil. Beautifully done. At the end of it all, he left. He got out of there. Maya survived. And Kingpin, after coming back, after she went back to Kingpin, said, you know what? You lasted longer than any of my other henchmen against this guy. Well done. Kind of saying that you weren't going to win. This is an unwinnable situation, but you actually came back alive. One, that's cool. And two, you lasted long. That's pretty badass. I'll give you that. We fast forward a little bit more. Hawkeye series. Ronan explained that Fisk was the one that did this and everything else. And then the gunshot. Boom. Fisk is on the floor. We fast forward 5 months later. She's going back to Oklahoma with a gunshot in her stomach. Now, Ardala, what was your thoughts on everything else up until that point?
I love how the fight sequence was filmed, like where she's coming in and it's her first time. She has no idea what's going on. And I really like when they cut to her perspective, and how she sees the world. And I wish they did that a lot more.
Yeah.
Like, I almost wish it was like a whole episode or something. But, yeah, I really like that. I like the fight sequence. And I like that she held her own with Daredevil and she got like commended for that. Like, it's not like she went back to Fisk.
Yeah, went back to Fisk.
Yeah, okay. I don't know if I was allowed to talk about that part.
Yeah.
I don't know if she went back to Fisk. Maybe she was scared she'd get scolded, but no, he was like impressed with how well she held her own. So
yeah.
I was curious about, did they ever address the gunshot part?
No. We'll get to that. We'll get to that later on. Okay. Your thoughts, Kevin. That's a good point. That's a good point.
That's a great point. I thought I you know what, I'm with you. I thought about that same thing when at that second there, because the time lapse didn't make kind of sense. But first and foremost, what I really appreciate was, of course, when she got patted down